The modern study of Japanese aesthetics only started a little over 200 years ago in the West. The Japanese aesthetic is a set of ancient ideals that include wabi, sabi, and yūgen. These ideals, and others, underpin much of Japanese cultural and aesthetic norms on what is considered tasteful or beautiful. Thus, while seen as a philosophy in Western societies, the concept of aesthetics in Japan is seen as an integral part of daily life. Japanese aesthetics now encompass a variety of ideals. Some of these are traditional while others are modern and sometimes influenced by other cultures. Shinto Buddhism. Shinto is considered to be at the fountainhead of Japanese culture. With its emphasis on the wholeness of nature and character in ethics, and its celebration of the landscape, it sets the tone for Japanese aesthetics. Nevertheless, Japanese aesthetic ideals are most heavily influenced by Japanese Buddhism. In the Buddhist tradition, all things are considered as either evolving from or dissolving into nothingness. This nothingness is not empty space. It is rather a space of potentiality. If the seas represent potential, then each thing is like a wave arising from it and returning to it. There are no permanent waves. At no point is a wave complete, even at its peak. Nature is seen as a dynamic whole that is to be admired and appreciated. This appreciation of nature has been fundamental to many Japanese aesthetic ideals, arts, and other cultural elements. In this respect, the notion of art is also quite different from Western traditions. Wabi-sabi. Wabi and sabi refers to a mindful approach to everyday life. Over time their meanings overlapped and converged until they are unified into wabi-sabi, the aesthetic defined as the beauty of things imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. Things in bud, or things in decay, as it were, are more evocative of wabi-sabi than things in full bloom because they suggest the transience of things. As things come and go, they show signs of their coming or going, and these signs are considered to be beautiful. In this, beauty is an altered state of consciousness and can be seen in the mundane and simple. The signatures of nature can be so subtle that it takes a quiet mind and a cultivated eye to discern them. In Zen philosophy there are 7 aesthetic principles for achieving wabi-sabi. Fukinsei, asymmetry, irregularity. Kanzo, simplicity. Koko, basic, weathered. Shizen, without pretense, natural. Yūgen, subtly profound grace, not obvious. Datsuzaku, unbounded by convention, free. Seijaku, tranquility. Each of these things are found in nature but can suggest virtues of human character and appropriateness of behavior. This, in turn, suggests that virtue and civility can be instilled through an appreciation of, and practice in, the arts. Hence, aesthetic ideals have an ethical connotation and pervades much of the Japanese culture. Miyabi. Miyabi is one of the oldest of the traditional Japanese aesthetic ideals, though perhaps not as prevalent as ki or wabi-sabi. In modern Japanese, the word is usually translated as elegance, refinement, or courtliness, and sometimes referred to as heartbreaker. The aristocratic ideal of Miyabi demanded the elimination of anything that was absurd or vulgar and the polishing of manners, diction, and feelings to eliminate all roughness and crudity so as to achieve the highest grace. It expressed that sensitivity to beauty which was the hallmark of the Heian era. Miyabi is often closely connected to the notion of the mono-no-aware, a bittersweet awareness of the transience of things, and thus it was thought that things in decline showed a great sense of Miyabi. Shibui. Shibui, shibumi, or shibasa are Japanese words which refer to a particular aesthetic or beauty of simple, subtle, and unobtrusive beauty. Originating in the Muromachi period as shibushi, the term originally referred to a sour or astringent taste, such as that of an unripe persimmon. Shibui maintains that literal meaning still, and remains the antonym of amai, meaning sweet. Like other Japanese aesthetic terms, such as ki and wabi-sabi, shibui can apply to a wide variety of subjects, not just art or fashion. Shibasa includes the following essential qualities. Shibui objects appear to be simple overall, but they include subtle details, such as textures, that balance simplicity with complexity. This balance of simplicity and complexity ensures that one does not tire of a shibui object but constantly finds new meanings and enriched beauty that cause its aesthetic value to grow over the years. Shibasa is not to be confused with wabi or sabi. Though many wabi or sabi objects are shibui, not all shibui objects are wabi or sabi. Wabi or sabi objects can be more severe and sometimes exaggerate intentional imperfections to such an extent that they can appear to be artificial. Shibui objects are not necessarily imperfect or asymmetrical, though they can include these qualities. Shibasa walks a fine line between contrasting aesthetic concepts such as elegant and rough or spontaneous and restrained. Ki is a traditional aesthetic ideal in Japan. The basis of ki is thought to have formed among urbane mercantile class in Edo in the Tokugawa period. Ki is an expression of simplicity, sophistication, spontaneity, and originality. It is ephemeral, straightforward, measured, and unself-conscious. Ki is not overly refined, pretentious, complicated. Ki may signify a personal trait, or artificial phenomenon exhibiting human will or consciousness. Ki is not used to describe natural phenomena, but may be expressed in human appreciation of natural beauty, or in the nature of human beings. The phrase ki is generally used in Japanese culture to describe qualities that are aesthetically appealing and when applied to a person, what they do, or have, constitutes a high compliment. Ki is not found in nature. While similar to wabi-sabi in that it disregards perfection, ki is a broad term that encompasses various characteristics related to refinement with flair. The tasteful manifestation of sensuality can be ki. Etymologically, ki has a root that means pure and unadulterated. However, it also carries a connotation of having an appetite for life. Johar Kaya. Johar Kaya is a concept of modulation and movement applied in a wide variety of traditional Japanese arts. Roughly translated to beginning, break, rapid, it implies a tempo that begins slowly, accelerates, and then ends swiftly. This concept is applied to elements of the Japanese tea ceremony, to kenda, to the traditional theater, to gagaku, and to the traditional collaborative linked verse forms renga and renku. Yūgen. Yūgen is an important concept in traditional Japanese aesthetics. The exact translation of the word depends on the context. In the Chinese philosophical texts the term was taken from, yūgen meant dim, deep, or mysterious. In the criticism of Japanese waka poetry, it was used to describe the subtle profundity of things that are only vaguely suggested by the poems, and was also the name of a style of poetry. Yūgen suggests that beyond what can be said but is not an allusion to another world. It is about this world, this experience. All of these are portals to Yūgen. To watch the sun sink behind a flower-clad hill. To wander on in a huge forest without thought of return. To stand upon the shore and gaze after a boat that disappears behind distant islands. To contemplate the flight of wild geese seen and lost among the clouds. And, subtle shadows of bamboo on bamboo. Zimi Motokyo. Zimi was the originator of the dramatic art form No theater and wrote the classic book on dramatic theory. He uses images of nature as a constant metaphor. For example, snow in a silver bowl represents the flower of tranquility. Yūgen is said to mean a profound, mysterious sense of the beauty of the universe. And the sad beauty of human suffering. It is used to refer to Zimi's interpretation of refined elegance in the performance of No. Gida. Gida refers to the various traditional Japanese arts disciplines, No, Kada, Shoda, Sada, and Yakemono. All of these disciplines carry an ethical and aesthetic connotation and teach an appreciation of the process of creation. To introduce discipline into their training, Japanese warriors followed the example of the arts that systematized practice through prescribed forms called kata, think of the tea ceremony. Training and combat techniques incorporated the way of the arts, practice in the arts themselves, and instilling aesthetic concepts and the philosophy of arts. This led to combat techniques becoming known as the martial arts. All of these arts are a form of tacit communication and we can, and do, respond to them by appreciation of this tacit dimension. Answer. Ensa is a Japanese word meaning circle. It symbolizes the absolute, enlightenment, strength, elegance, the universe, and the void. It also may be taken to symbolize the Japanese aesthetic itself. Zen Buddhist calligraphists may believe that the character of the artist is fully exposed in how she or he draws an ensa. Only a person who is mentally and spiritually complete can draw a true ensa. Some artists will practice drawing an ensa daily, as a kind of spiritual exercise. Aesthetics and Japan's cultural identities. Because of its nature, Japanese aesthetics has a wider relevance than is usually accorded to aesthetics in the West. In her path-making book, Eiko Ikegami reveals a complex history of social life in which aesthetic ideals become central to Japan's cultural identities. She shows how networks in the performing arts, the tea ceremony, and poetry shape tacit cultural practices and how politeness and politics are inseparable. She contends that what in Western cultures are normally scattered, like art and politics, have been, and are, distinctly integrated in Japan. After the introduction of Western notions in Japan, wabi-sabi aesthetics ideals have been re-examined with Western values, by both Japanese and non-Japanese. Therefore, recent interpretations of the aesthetics ideals inevitably reflect Judeo-Christian perspectives and Western philosophy. Gastronomy. Many traditional Japanese aesthetic criteria are manifest in, and discussed as part of, diverse elements of Japanese cuisine. See Keski for a refined expression. Kawaii. A modern phenomenon, since the 1970s cuteness or kawaii in Japanese has become a prominent aesthetic of Japanese popular culture, entertainment, clothing, food, toys, personal appearance, behavior, and mannerisms. As a cultural phenomenon, cuteness is increasingly accepted in Japan as a part of Japanese culture and national identity. Tomoyuki Sugiyama, author of Cool Japan, believes that cuteness is rooted in Japan's harmony-loving culture, and Nobuyoshi Kurita, a sociology professor at Musashi University in Tokyo, has stated that cutes is a magic term that encompasses everything that's acceptable and desirable in Japan. See also, cuteness and Japanese culture, Japanese sword, Hunkadri, Isshin-denshin, Japanese garden, Ikebana, Japanese music, Mono no Wa. References. Further reading, Moraes, Mayeko. Bridge of Dreams, The Mary Griggs Burke Collection of Japanese Art. New York, The Metropolitan Museum of Art. ISBN 0-87099-941-9.